There are a lot of moments in midlife that you just don't see coming. They're in lots of different areas. One of them might be with your parents or grandparents. One day you're chugging along and you're just calling to check in, see how they're doing. Then suddenly, blink of an eye, you're the one scheduling appointments, you're coordinating their care, you're making sure that they have meals, you're doing the driving, you're suddenly making the decisions. You are suddenly a caregiver. In this episode of the Advanced Adulting Podcast, we're going to talk with Justin Boogaard. He's the founder of GoGo Grandparent. It's a global company that takes care of older adults and helps them stay independent and connected without having to use tech or an app or one of these. But this isn't a business story. It's a personal one. Because when Justin started the company, it was for his grandmother Betty. It was because she had a need. And also because, like any good Nana, she goes, well, here's an idea. Why don't you go do it? Love it when Nanas believe in you, right? We're going to talk about caregiving. We're going to talk about family. We're going to talk about choices. It's a great conversation. In this video, we're going to cover the moment you realize that the roles have reversed. We're going to talk about how loneliness is really one of the most dangerous health risks for older adults. There's dog number one. I think dog number two is around here. See, you get that extra with advanced adulting. Super high production value here, right? We're going to talk about why families wait entirely too long to have these conversations and how you can do it differently. We're going to talk about aging in place and what that really means and what it really looks like and what it doesn't mean. And we're going to talk about how to help your older parents to stay independent without you losing your mind. Look, if you're part of the sandwich generation, if you're caring for aging parents and maybe kids and just trying to keep your own shit together, this conversation is entirely for you. You are not alone. And before we get too far into it, I want to thank Justin and GoGo Grandparent for two things that you will benefit from. Justin and the folks at GoGo have created an aging parents playbook that you can download here for free. It has all kinds of tips, tools, things that you can use. So the information is below. And as a way to say thank you to you advanced adults, he and GoGo are giving away 2 free rides when you use the promo code ADULTING. And now let's talk to Justin Boogaard, CEO of GoGo Grandparent. I'm Bradley Richardson, and this is Advanced Adulting. Justin Boogaard, welcome to Advanced Adulting.
So happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Good. Well, we've been trying to connect for a while. We finally did. We got a chance to speak a few weeks ago briefly while you were in Sweden, and you're back from world traveling and helping people change the way that we care for our older loved ones. So I love it and happy to have this chance to talk to you.
Thanks. Yeah, really excited that we got the chance to sit down and do this. I'm
Good.
stoked.
We're going to cover a lot of things. We're going to cover not only caregiver burnout. We're going to talk about planning. We're talking about signs to look for in your loved one. We'll talk about the idea of socialization, loneliness, communities versus aging at home, all this good stuff. But one of the things I want to start with is it's all personal. I mean, whether you have a loved one, a family member, a grandparent that you're caring for, it's personal. And what I love about this space is I've talked to a lot of CEOs and founders like yourself, almost to the person. Every single one of them gets into this not because hey, it's a great business model. They get into it because of a personal relationship or personal need that they've experienced. And you're no different. And so what I'd love to know is tell us a little bit about your grandmother, about Betty, and how she played a role in you getting here today and starting this.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're so right. It is so deeply personal. And happy to talk more about how it is kind of a complicated business, but once you're in it, you're kind of committed. And so happy to go anywhere that you want to go. But as far as grandma goes, I will set the stage. So I had just graduated and I had worked my first job and I really didn't like it. And so wanted to try figuring out my next move. I had called my grandma. My grandfather had just passed away. And so I sort of thought, this is a shoe-in, called my grandma. And I said, hey, grandma, do you think I'd be able to stay with you for a little bit while I try to figure out my next move? And she said, I'm going to think about it. I'll call you back. And I was like, whoa, whoa, what's going on here?
Yeah.
And she called me back and she said, no problem. I said, yeah, it'll only be for a few months. And she said, okay, 3 months? Yeah, 3 months. Okay, great. So I moved in, and that was 2012. That must have been May of 2012. And I ended up moving out in May of 2015. So the
Hmm.
3 months turned into 3 years. I think that my grandma, who had just lost her husband, and I think she was going through some stuff at that point, um, and we were both surprised that we ended up getting along. And we obviously known each other for my whole life. But it wasn't really until I ended up living with her that I came to understand her more as like a person. Her name's Betty.
Hmm.
And so got to know Betty more, and Betty got to know me more, and it turned into like a really cool roommate slash familial vibe, I guess is the best way to say it. Over that time, um, I could see she was 82 when I moved in. She was 85 when I moved out. She's 94 today. And so
Wow.
I'm still using GoGo. And so she's like the secret weapon of
Hmm.
our product innovation, kind of machine.
Right.
But even from 82 to 85, I could see how she was beginning to struggle with things that she didn't used to struggle with when I had moved in. And when I moved out, we had a pretty, you know, not right away when I moved out, but shortly after I moved out, we had a pretty candid conversation about like how comfortable she was at driving at night. She started it. Sometimes I think it's easier for grandparents to have those types of conversations with grandkids because
Hmm.
there's less of the like, I raised you, it's
Right.
more just like, well, you came into my life sort of a thing. So anyway, she's telling me a little bit about driving, discomfort driving at night. And at the time, I didn't have a car. I was mostly using Uber to get around. And so she said, well, I was wondering like could you give me their phone number and maybe I'll use them when I have to get around at night. Oof, grandma, they don't they don't have a phone number. You have to have this app. You got to be able to use the smartphone comfortably. And she wasn't comfortable with that sort of thing. And I think that we could kind of see that she was trending towards being less and less comfortable with
Hmm.
being able to use, her fingers really quickly or being able to catch notifications when they pop up, um, being able to chat with the driver, and I'm sure you've used Uber before. They
Yeah.
kind of have like a pretty quick response time. You got to be able to catch that thing and reply
Right.
back. And so wasn't going to work. Grandma, I'm sorry, they don't have a phone number. And then she just kind of sternly said, well, you should make that. And she said it like that because I had been spending 3 years in her house not paying rent. And what are you
Yeah.
doing? I was working with my co-founder. We were working on a bunch of different ideas. None of them were working. And then grandma sort of admonished me, go make that. And so we took that. I took that back to my co-founder, David Lung.
Hmm.
And we were like, well, nothing else we're doing is working. At least we'll have this one user. That's, we haven't been able to get to that point. Let's try
Gotta have
it.
a customer.
And so we put it together for her, and then we didn't tell her that we had made it for her. I made it sound like I had just sort of found it. Oh, grandma, there's this service you can call. It's exactly what you wanted. We found it. Here you go. And just to see if she would use it, because if I told her I had made it for her, she probably would use it. Really wanted to
Right.
see if she would just use it. And a couple weeks go by, she didn't use it. And so we're like, oh, maybe she needs a reminder. So my co-founder David wrote her like a handwritten note on a card that we got from like Walgreens, and then we mailed it to her. And that Sunday, I was seeing her every Sunday. That Sunday, I came for dinner, and the card that he had written was like on the table, and she was like, "Look at that service that you had found me. They sent me like a welcome note." And I was like, "Oh, what do you think?" And so we talked about it a little bit more, and she was like, "Yeah, well, I think I might use it for this trip I have coming up." And so we did. Um, a week later, the phone number rings. The number I had given her was just a forwarding number. It wasn't the real GoGo service. So I put on like a fake accent. Grandma, I didn't say grandma, obviously. Betty, hey, we're so glad that
Ah,
you called. Yeah, we're so glad that you called. How can we help you? And she scheduled a ride. My parents were in on this. They were, desperately hoping that this would work because if it didn't work, the stakes were high. Like, are we gonna? My parents live in San Diego. My grandma lives in LA, so it's about a 2-hour drive. Are we gonna move grandma out of that house? She's been in that house for like 60 years. More importantly, are we gonna move grandma to our house? Like I said, stakes were high. Everyone gets along really well, but it's just a big change. And she's been in that house for now 70 years, and so we really wanted something that she could use to stay independent for longer without, while being safe and being able to like exercise her own autonomy. So my parents are in on it. As it happens, the place that my grandma scheduled a ride to was a place I was also going to. I have a cousin, he's a ballet performer, and he was the Tin Man in the Nutcracker. So it's
Okay.
like the peak of his career. I'm in the car with my mom coming up from San Diego. Grandma's coming down from LA. The performance is in Long Beach. She requests the ride. I put the fake accent on, immediately order on my phone. The driver shows up, or I'm sorry, the driver gets assigned. I immediately call. I still remember this guy. His name was Luther. And hey, Luther, my name's Justin. You're picking up my grandma. This has to go well. Are you, my grandma was traveling with her friend Edie, who had one eye and a cane. She's going to be with Edie. Are you going to be able to like open the door for them and put the cane in the trunk? Is that going to be okay? And he said, don't worry. I got this. And it was, GoGo would not happen if it weren't for Luther. What happened was Luther was at the time both driving for Uber Black and picking up Uber economy rides. And
Hmm.
so he was doing both. And so he was driving a like super luxury vehicle dressed in a suit.
Oh,
And so
nice.
when we get to the performance, I see my grandma and she cannot stop talking about how smooth and easy that was and how great Luther was. And it was just really good news. We still didn't tell her. She got a trip back.
Hmm.
Still didn't tell her because we really wanted to see if she would use it again.
Right.
In the end, we did tell her before she used it again because the next week we get a call and I think it's my grandma. I pick up the phone and I'm like, oh, this is so great. Like, hello, this is GoGo. How can I help you? And it wasn't grandma. It was her friend Edie. And we
Oh,
had never given Edie the phone number. So the only way she could have gotten it is if she liked the experience so much that she had asked grandma for the number. And that we had never had that, David and I had never had that moment happen to us where there was like an organic referral. So we
hmm,
started jumping up and down. And that's when we started taking it super seriously. We applied to Y Combinator in Mountain View in Northern California, moved up there the summer of 2016 and hit the ground running. Even to this day, though, that first experience with grandma has been so formative. So now if you call, it's not like you're going directly to a person who puts on a funny voice. It's the system is a combination of people, but then also a automated phone system. So you can call in, you can customize it. So, hi, Justin, thanks for calling GoGo. Please press 1 to get picked up from your home. Please press 2 to get picked up where we dropped you off last. Or you
hmm.
can speak to an operator. We have a team of 500 people that can pick up whenever you press 0 to speak to them, or you can set up your account to just skip the customizable system and
Hmm.
go straight to them. So all of that, it makes it faster and easier for people to use. They don't have to download an app, and at the same time, that experience that I had with Luther has become a part of the experience going forward. We call every driver that gets assigned to one of our clients. We make
Hmm.
sure that they can accommodate a walker, or if someone needs the car seat to be slid all the way back so that they can stretch out because they have a
Right.
slipped disc and they need to extend their foot. We'll handle a lot of those requests, those kind of custom requests that are unique to the client over the phone with the driver. We'll save those experiences with the driver. If they get assigned to another GoGo client, we'll run them through our system, make sure that they've said yes, they can help with loading a walker into the trunk,
Hmm.
helping an older adult buckle their seatbelt. And then if the client needs that, we'll let it go through. If it's a driver that's never had that request, we'll call them again. So there's this huge white glove kind of apparatus happening behind the scenes to tailor every experience to the needs of the client. And we
Hmm.
learned that from grandma. The last thing I'll say, sorry, you probably didn't want a 15-minute.
No, it's why
The
you're here.
last thing is that every client that signs up gets a welcome card, not just a card. Now we also have like a business card and they can request a magnet, but uh,
You're not going to Walgreens anymore, right?
we don't go to Walgreens anymore. We have established printers in different regions of the United States. But, but that welcome card is so important because it makes people feel like, okay, the service is real.
Hmm.
They know my name, and so that was also something that we learned from that very first experience. So it's been a wild ride since. Happy to get into it, but that was the beginning.
Well, I mean, and again, we start off saying you founded this out of a personal need. Granted, not many founders had their grandma said you need to go do this now, but I
Right,
loved
right.
it.
Yeah, it really was her idea. I mean, that's a critical thing I need to make sure is out there. She told us to do this. She
Well,
needed this, and
you got to
so
do what grandma says.
you gotta
That's
do it.
good. You're a
That's
good boy. There you
yeah,
go. What a good
there it is.
grandson.
Oh, thank
Um,
you.
what I think is interesting is, and look, my mom has passed, but I know the challenges with just transportation, and that's whether they're living on their own, whether they're living, at home or a facility or anything. Just that, it's daunting. It's daunting when they don't know, you don't know how they're going to get there, and that whole experience. When you're talking about Luther, you're talking about everything from the comfort level of a card, the comfort level of, hey, I'm picking up a phone because, yeah, look, I mean, you get so many apps and everything else to choose from. You're just frictionless, and then that experience, that, hey, because it doesn't matter who you are, but you're going to have a custom experience there,
Right.
whether it's going to the doctor, whether it's going to a show or anything. And that, I just remember the challenges that we have with my mother, just getting her to the doctor. Okay. From a scheduling standpoint, from a logistics standpoint, everything. And
Yeah.
so we didn't know about GoGo at the time.
How
Would
many
have been a
siblings
big
do you
help.
have? You're saying
Sorry.
we. You're saying
My
we.
sister and I. Yeah,
Yeah.
my sister and I were the
Usually
ones.
it's a family effort. Yeah.
Well, let's talk about that for a second. I mean, that's kind of a big thing for so many folks. And you and I, we're talking about your grandma. Generation one. I'm in my 50s. Okay, generation two. You're the grandchild on this. I mean, I assume you're in your 30s there. I think that's the thing with so many families with this is, you have to plan for it. You do. In the back of your mind, everybody does, whether it's something of going for Sunday dinner, whether it's going for, Thanksgiving or the holidays or whatever. And you see sometimes the decline, or that, hey, they're going to, someone just passed away. So, your grandfather passed away. You have to deal with this. But what is amazing is very few people, myself included, it, but you don't plan for it. You don't. It becomes this kind of, oh crap moment of, wow, we need this and we need it now. And either here's a gap where I don't know where to go, or you become Dr. Google in the middle of the night and, trying to find something. Let's talk about that for a second. Because you see so many different families and so many different seniors. When families wait too long, okay, it's stressful, but what can they do to really get beyond this denial of kicking the can down the road?
Yeah. It will definitely come back to bite them one way or another. So it's not a question of like, okay, when is the right time to notice it? Usually you're being forced to notice it. And I guess it is that question. When is the right time to notice it? Because when you're being forced to notice it, there's things that you could have done that you didn't do, and now you've chosen like this universe, and
Mm-hmm.
and that you're committed at that point.
Mm-hmm.
So let's talk a little bit about aging. I think there's a few 30-year-olds who have thought about end stage aging as much as the team at GoGo Grandparent. So talking
Right.
a little bit about aging, it's and I mean like end stage aging. Scientific research calls this group the oldest old. So the oldest old usually starts like early 80s. It can impact everyone and come for everyone at different times, but um, it 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 can be when you're living through it, it can feel so specific. It can be so like, look, my grandma needs to be able to like talk to her Amazon Alexa, and the Amazon Alexa Wi-Fi is not connecting right now, and I can't physically go there to connect the Alexa, but you have to be physically there to do it. How am I going to solve this problem that's
Right.
associated with aging? So it can be so specific, but when you step back and you talk about it, especially in the context of like a podcast where listeners might be going through different things at different times, I think it is helpful to talk about the patterns that emerge around what aging looks like. So
Mm-hmm.
in every individual instance, it can feel different, but there are some patterns.
Mm-hmm.
This isn't GoGo. This is the caregiving industry has
Sure.
characterized these as there's 7 sort of activities that people begin to struggle with as they age that impact their ability to live independently. There are then some other set of activities, there's 6 other activities that we can talk about in a second that impact people's ability to live. So it's living independently leads to not being able to live independently eventually leads to not being able to live, without help. Maybe it's helpful to like talk a little bit about So the six activities where you're not able to live independently. So I think the definition is if you can't do any two of these activities on your own, you'll end up in the emergency room within 3 days.
Hmm.
Things people can think about it. This is like helping someone eat, helping someone use the restroom, helping someone get up out of bed. So things that you kind of need a caregiver for. And that's usually when people are waking up to this problem. They've like something really bad has happened and now they're here. And you can't go back. You can't try to fix it earlier. You're here now. You're
Right.
committed to caregiver, a senior living facility, something or a move, something like that. But the activities that come before that, those are also predictable and they happen over a huge period of time. So usually about 7 years. These are called the instrumental activities of daily living, and there's seven of them. Usually the first one to go, no surprise, is transportation. And so I think that's part of the reason why this is what came up first for my grandma. It's because it's the first one that typically goes. And you can imagine why. Driving is a complicated activity that requires cognitive function to be sharp, reaction speeds. You have
Hmm.
to be fully in tune with your body and be able to step on a brake or move a wheel a little bit. You have to be able to see at night and feel comfortable driving long distances. So
Right.
driving, because it incorporates so many systems, those start to go first. What another way of thinking about the picture I'm trying to describe is that if you are seeing someone struggling with driving, even if it's just driving at night, what that means is that in 7 years, they statistically they are going to be at that point where they need much more than just a little help driving at night. And so you don't
Okay.
have to do anything in that moment, but you just need to be cognizant that there has yet to be a person who has had trouble driving at night and then who has not passed away and
Right.
done so through age-related frailty. And so it is kind of a road that begins with that. And the nice news is it's not the only milestone. So eventually people will start they'll start eating a lot of the same things. And so, oh, okay. It's easy to joke about. I think that's part of the reason why
Right.
it's so hard to like to to see it for what it is. But like, oh yeah, my grandpa, he just loves, yeah, or he loved eating like peanut butter jelly sandwiches. Well, it wasn't probably true that he loved eating peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. What was probably true is that he was trying to make trade-offs and he wasn't feeling comfortable eating other types of things.
Hmm.
And it's not like he loved peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. It's just maybe he was starting to get uncomfortable cooking for himself, or being able to go and gather like meals, even from restaurants that he needed because of um,
So it's not
potential.
being stubborn. It's not resistant to change. It really speaks to something that is um, more hands on.
Yeah,
It's just okay.
perfect example is, Dad, why are you always wearing that old sweater? Like, we're gonna change your sweater. "Oh, you're so stubborn. You always put on this sweater. I buy you all these sweaters all the time. Like, why are you getting this sweater?" And then finally, this is a real story. And so finally, the older adult responded, I, this is the only sweater that has like a zipper I can use. And so, yeah, I've had it for 20 years, but all these other zippers are too small. And it's like this tiny little detail that they're embarrassed maybe to share. And so they're
Well,
not going to volunteer that. But
right.
the observation that you can see is that this behavior that you think is obstinate or stubborn or strange is kind of a early indicator, a goal or milepost on that journey to um, the other set of activities of daily living, the six things that you kind of need a caregiver to do. The good news is that journey is pretty much set, but you can control the speed. You can control how quickly that goes. And so I know that we were going to talk a little bit about research. I can do that now.
I do. I want to talk about that in a second. But what I think
Yeah.
is so important, and you touched on this a little bit just in the very beginning of the conversation when you're talking about Betty, how, the time you spent with her, she got to know you as a person, not just her grandson, but you got to know her
Hmm.
as, hey, as beyond your grandma, as a woman. And
Right.
I think what we forget, and, I talked to a lot of people about this aging and, even in my own life, you don't know what you don't know until you're there. And
Yeah.
we forget that so many people, they're going through it and you see her a certain way. You see that person a certain way, but you know, pride, ego, fear, all of those things come into play and you don't want to admit that, hey, I can't do this anymore, or hey, I'm scared, or hey, the zipper bothers me, I can't do this. And we forget, we think there's something wrong. Well, yeah, but they're still a human. They're still having their own personality and their own ego and frailties and all of those things as a person, and their own personality that
Hmm.
they're going through. And I think that we forget them, and especially, and it also speaks to you, uh, that ability probably as a grandchild to be able to communicate better with a grandparent than the child. I remember my sister and I had battles with my mom, and looking back, I was an ass. Okay, both of us were, just for the simple reason that, why won't you do this? It's inverted, and the child becomes the parent. You start parenting your parents and almost admonishing them,
Yeah.
though, for something, and you realize, no, she's probably scared. She's probably just scared that she can't
Scared,
figure this out or can't do it.
embarrassed, feels like a burden. Those are
Hmm.
usually the words that people use to describe like why they to go. Um, yeah, and no one wants to feel that way with their kid. I think you're right. I think that me sort of meeting my grandma. Now I knew her my whole life, of course, but it
Right.
was sort of like a major holidays type relationship. She lived 2 hours away, but
Right.
when I moved in with her, it was like, oh, okay, I'm meeting her as an 82-year-old. She's got this rich life
Hmm.
personality. She was an avid golfer, and then okay, yeah, 83 and a half. She puts her clubs down for the last time, and I can kind of see that, and I think she felt a little bit, it was easier maybe for her to talk a little bit about it because we didn't have that same dynamic where she had raised me. And so, it was easier to be, but I'm still a family member. So
Sure.
I don't know if that's unique to us or not, but it's with her at least that was kind of how that dynamic played out.
I just think it's funny, and I turn 59 next week, and it's really funny. And my kids are all mid late 20s, almost 30, and I just think of that. And I think when I was their age, and it's funny, as I wrote one of the very first books on Gen X back when I was in my 20s, and I'm thinking of that. And I'm looking at people who are, I thought 59, 60 was old. Okay, I mean, God forbid 80. And I'm sitting there thinking, I look and I would question even my parents' choices or other people's choices. I go, well, why, gosh, that's so simple. Why can't you do this? And it becomes a very older person or parental thing to say, just wait. You'll understand when you're my age, or just you'll see. Yeah. And they're right. They're 100% right.
Yeah.
You don't know. You can say it, you can rationalize it, but you don't know until you're there in that moment. And when you actually step back and go, hey, they are they're human having their own personal life experience right now, and you have to respect that. And just like you're going to, that has dramatically changed my outlook on aging, because I don't feel 60. I mean, hell, I feel like maybe hell, I feel your age. I feel maybe 30 some odd. And but I'm not. But mentally, you're still there, and you still have your wants and dreams and desires and thoughts and fears and all of that, and you always will, even just like Betty.
Yeah. I think that something that was really interesting, a quick anecdote that I'll share is like my grandma at 82, 85, she didn't consider herself old because she had friends who were 10 years older. And
Hmm.
so I think this is kind of what makes running a business like GoGo sometimes a little bit difficult. You can't just be a service for older adults because no one considers themselves an older adult pretty much until they look 10 years later and they don't have friends so now at
Yeah,
94, my grandma's like, I guess I'm getting up
yeah.
there. And it's like, grandma, but, but yeah, I mean, I think what you're describing where that inner self doesn't
Hmm.
feel old
No.
lasts. I mean, even at 94, she's saying, I guess I'm getting up there. And so,
Well, it's funny. So the other day, I was out, running errands or something, and I come back and I'm telling Shannon, I said, yeah, there's a group of older guys, and they were in their 70s. This is how I was describing it. I was describing it in a factual statement of, okay, they're in their 70s. So I said, these older guys, and she looked at me, she starts laughing. She goes, whoa, 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 hold up. You're an older guy. You're an older guy now. And I thought about that. I thought, you're right. To a lot of
mm,
people, I am. And to your point of where you are mentally, because there's always someone else. I saw something the other day, and I don't know, I don't know who said it to cite it, but it was that we view older people as 10 to 20 years older than us. So
mm,
I'm almost 59. I would look at someone who's almost 80s. Oh, they're older. So it would make sense in their 70s or 80s. They're older.
yeah.
But yeah, it's just interesting how we matriculate life. We just go through it.
Yeah. And so I do think it can sometimes be challenging, not just for someone else to talk to someone and say, hey, I think you need help, the reason why it's challenging is that it's difficult for that person to realize, um, because it's the first time that they've been going through it, that like, oh yeah, this is actually something that I do need help with. If you can, then there's all these like really great benefits that come out of it. Um, uh, I was about to share. I guess I'm here now, so I'll share a quick story
Yeah, let's do it.
with
Let's talk
my
about
own
that.
dad. So my dad's 75, turning 76 next month, October 30th, and you know, he's been getting really excited about like building this new. Well, I'm sorry, no, that's not true. Last year, when he was about to turn 75, I kind of had a conversation. I said, Dad, Mom, my mom's 65, so there's a 10-year age gap. But Dad, Mom, like, um, you know, you've seen what's going on with Grandma, and we all got good genes. So there's two ways to get off the train. There's very fast or like the slow. We're probably going to be getting off. Our train's probably going to be slow and down for a long time. So,
Right.
you know, you're going to be turning 75. Great news. You got plenty of time to have like a meaningful, you know, lived experience that's as long as my lived experience has been to this point in my own life. And
Hmm.
you can make that be as great as you want to be, but you should probably start thinking about it being like the last big chapter before like random things start popping up and you're not able to have as good of a time. And so I really want you guys to think about like, you know, the house that they live in is in a flood zone. And so every year my dad has to like get out and he has to clear out the creek next to the house. And if he doesn't, like the house is at risk of falling down. And so
Hmm.
in that case, home maintenance is actually one of the instrumental activities of daily living. There are so many people who don't realize that they have a problem until that winter the leaves that are in their gutter haven't been cleaned out, water builds up on their roof and they lose their roof and now they have to move into a retirement community, but their home is also destroyed. So don't let that happen to you. But Dad, Mom, don't let that happen to you. You know, you don't have to tell me right now, but you should probably seriously think about it. And then like this is the time where we can plan if you want to go into a community or whatever. Like there's a lot of great independent living communities where you can be playing pickleball every single day. And they promptly told me to like, you know, shut the F up and go to your room. and
Right.
and,
Yeah.
and so
Well,
and
I
so
got this. You're good.
and I did. And we didn't speak about it for another month. But then a month later, my dad started like building out a retaining wall or contracting the building of a retaining wall in the creek. And then they started investing in their backyard. They built out like a kind of an outdoor kitchen patio. And when I asked him about it, he's like, well, like, oh, and then finally he told me they're putting in an elevator. It's a two-story house. And I was like, ah, okay. So like you
You made
guys
your choice. Got it.
are committing to here. And he was like, yeah, you're an absolute brat, but we're committing to here. And so, and now he can do that. And if he, you know, because of that, because he's not going to be dealing with those problems of like, oh, I got to put in an elevator when I'm already kind of struggling, he, it's going to be so much smoother for them.
Hmm.
And it's gonna be smoother for me. And so it's
Sure.
going to be easier for, I think, the next 15, 20 years because they're making the decision to sort of better invest now. And that is what people see with the instrumentals. A big horrible thing that when I think about my own journey through aging, I'm super worried about is what happens with cognitive stimulation as your world gets smaller and smaller. And
Hmm.
so this happens with a lot of older adults, but they can't leave their home comfortably. They might not be eating very well.
Right.
They might be living in maybe unsafe conditions because of the home maintenance stuff. Now, I mean, we once talked to a client who she only lived in two rooms in her house because all of
Hmm.
the other rooms, the light bulbs had gone out, and she couldn't get up on a stool to like fix it. She didn't have anyone that
Right.
could. And so your world will kind of get smaller. Your opportunities for cognitive stimulation start to get a little bit smaller, and then that can really advance physical consequences in your health. Going back to
Hmm.
that horrible metaphor of the train, but that's going to speed up the train through
Right.
like your journey through aging. And so if you can invest in things that slow it down and let you, you know, you have a solution that can get you to the Moose Lodge is an example that we use internally at GoGo. There's this woman, her name is Rosemary. She always calls in and she tells you her age and her weight. She's 86 and she weighs 96 pounds. And she goes to the Moose Lodge and it's some sort of dancing thing. So
Right.
she's setting up her life for that cognitive stimulation that's going to keep her feeling young and going for a lot longer than if she hadn't made a decision to kind of invest in covering some of the gaps. And so there's
But
research that goes into that. But I just wanted to share a little bit more about how those conversations have been going on in my own family, and how I'm, you know, it's extremely uncomfortable of a conversation to have, and not for everyone. But that's how we've been thinking about it.
hey, we'll get back to the conversation in just a second. But I want to take a moment and thank our partner, GoGo Grandparent. GoGo is a service that helps older adults stay independent by connecting them to rides, groceries, and essential deliveries, all using a phone. No app, no smartphone, anything like that required. It's old school meets new school. Look, if your parents or grandparents have stopped driving, or if you quietly become their on call chauffeur, you need to know about GoGo. With just a simple phone, GoGo connects your loved one to safe rides, grocery, meal deliveries, even home services. And it keeps you in the loop with text updates. We partner with them to create a free resource just for you, the Aging Parents Playbook. It's full of practical tools to help you navigate planning, caregiving, and keeping your parents safe and supported. You can download the free Aging Parents Playbook now in the description or the bio, or comment the word GoGo. And as a bonus, you're going to get 2 free rides when you use the promo code ADULTING. Claim your free rides by going to GoGoGrandparent.com or call 1-855-649-2748. And don't forget to mention promo code ADULTING to get your 2 free rides. Now, let's get back to the conversation.
And
What are some ways that you bring these conversations up? Because you're right. I mean, it's just how it's delivered. It's a sensitive subject on both ends. Acknowledging a decline, whether you're the older person, whether you're a child or a grandchild. I think this is where a lot of people screw it up. They either ignore it and don't talk about it, or they talk about it in a no, this is what you're going to do type of situation.
right.
What do you see as some best practices for that?
I think earlier is better, ideally before there's a problem. One easy way to do it is to start talking about like stuff that, end of life things, like, oh, hey, like, um, uh, I I'm going through this. Not okay. So one example would be, I just got married recently, right? So I'm using my own life milestone, and I'm leveraging that to start a conversation around a life milestone that my parents might have far, far into the future. So, hey, we just got married, and like we're thinking about our will, or we're thinking about our I'm blanking on the name. There's like an end of life protocol where you can sort of fill it out, and even if you're not cognitively there, they'll follow the instructions. End of life resuscitation instructions. Maybe that's it. We can look this up. But I was doing this myself, and I realized, like, hey, how do you want this to go for you? Do you want to be like on a machine and we'll just keep going until the doctors say no, or do you want to like pull the plug? 90% of people do not want to be on life support for greater than 72 hours. It's 90% of people would prefer, like, pulling the plug. And so it's an easy way to kind of bring up this thing that it's like, okay, it's far in the future. You don't have to worry about it now, but like, it is probably a preference. You won't be there to tell me. So what would you want like your resuscitation instructions to look like? And now you're talking about it. I think it's hard to give like a single piece of advice to any family because every family is so different. But there are these like different tactics that can come up. So one of them, leveraging your own milestone or someone else in your family's milestone to like bring it up with that person. I think a big thing to know is that by the time you're bringing something up with someone, they've noticed it. Like, they're aware. They're not just being upset with you. They're also being upset with the fact that now, like, their secret is out, and that someone's put words to it. And so some of that is like, okay, processing and shock. And then there's also this sense of like, man, so another tactic. Usually you're not overcoming like, dad, why can you not see this? What you're trying to overcome is dad is thinking to himself, okay, this is true, but what else do I have? Like, what am I going to do? Like, I have to ignore this because I have no other option. So another
Yeah.
tactic is kind of in sharing a little bit more about other options. A lot of people think that like, car ownership is free. And if you talk about like the financials of, okay, well, if you sell your car and you don't pay insurance and you don't pay gas, actually like a ride service is potentially cheaper. Dad, you go out like 3 times a week. It's not like you're driving everywhere like a maniac. You mostly are home. If we do the math, this is actually going to save you money. That's a tactic that we've seen be successful. Um, a lot of people are like, okay, yeah, sure, it's a ride service, but like, man, it's or let's say it's not a ride service. It's like, oh man, I have to call the city. I'm gonna have to be on paratransit. I'm gonna be told I have to wait like 5 days in advance. I won't. It's not the cost. It's like the freedom. I'm not gonna be able to like get out there. And there are services, plug for GoGo, but there are even outside of GoGo, there are things that you can do um, to give that person like their flexibility and their freedom back, even if they don't use it. Just knowing that they can pick up anytime, call 24/7, and request a ride that can take them to anywhere they want to go. Be that the Moose Lodge, a casino, whatever. Even if they don't go, it's like something that they have the ability to do, and that sometimes is enough, to make someone feel a little bit more comfortable. The last thing I'll say is the other objection that you hear is that, man, like, well, even if it's really fast, like I'm a little bit worried about I'm worried about trusting a stranger, and I'm worried about kind of I can't do these things on my own anymore, so I'm gonna have to get into the car with a stranger, and I don't, they might not be telling you this, but that might be the thing that's sort of in the back of their mind. And once you have whatever's in the back of their mind out, it's usually easier to maybe help overcome those objections. Oh, mom, dad, I'll do the first one with you. I'll be right here. You'll be able to call me, whatever. And then you're showing them how easy the alternative is. And then like if the truth is that they've sort of noticed this already and they feel as if there's an easy alternative, you can kind of sit back and wait sometimes and let it sort of take its natural course. That doesn't mean abdicate, but maybe you're not being so forceful and you're more just like making sure that those alternatives are in their home, in their daily life, easy to use, ready to go whenever.
Right.
That's another tactic that we've seen work. I
Well,
could talk about others, but go on.
what I see as a theme in this, and you've mentioned it, and it's part of what we try and do with seniors, and they all strive for independence. I mean, no one likes to lose their independence. I don't care how old you are. I mean, when you're young, you want your independence. When you're old, you want to hang on to it and fight for your independence. And sometimes that just means you're not capable of it, or it's not safe, or it's not in your best interest. And that's a hard thing to acknowledge. Um, One thing I want to talk about. I want to go back to this. You were talking about your dad and the choice to stay at home, and they're planning ahead, which a lot of people should do, but to really fit the house for what's ahead. Um, yeah, the stats are incredible now, showing how many people want to age at home and remain in their home now for a number of reasons. But some people, choose to live in a facility. Some people don't have the opportunity to, or the funds to. Let's talk about that for a second. Let's
Yeah.
talk about. I think you'd mentioned something about your grandma. She's chosen to stay in her home for, well, you said almost 70 years now,
Hmm.
but you don't know if that's necessarily the best choice. What are some things people should evaluate or look at? Hey, is it better to stay at home, or is it better to maybe look at a community?
Yeah. My grandma calls it her starter home because it was her and my grandfather. They did this like starter home idea, and it turned out to be like their forever home. But and she obviously knows that now. But when she tells the story of how they got there, it's like, oh yeah, this was our starter home. I will move into a community when I am at that point. That is my plan. I think that if you can, they are a lot of fun. It's like going back to college. And what's nice about them is the cognitive dissonance around like making decisions when you need help with things. Um, a lot of that goes away. It's so going back to like making it easy for an older adult to realize what the alternatives are. A community, they have like they're full of support, and you just have to say yes one day, and it won't even it's not like, oh, I have to go figure out how to get this logistically set up, yada yada. You're there. Hey, I need like i, I think I'm going to need some help, with cleaning my apartment. Boom, done there. And it's it feels almost like a hotel, um, or it can if it's if it's the right sort of thing. So
Right.
let's talk a little bit about communities because I don't think enough people know about this. So uh, there's a few different sort of tiers of communities. You have well, actually, it kind of starts with 55 and up, and so these are usually like zoned municipalities
Mhm.
that maybe even have their own zip code, and they were set up kind of in the 60s as a way to pay way less on property taxes because there are no schools because it is a 55 and up community, and so
Yes, yes, I'm well aware of these now being over 55 and seeing. I think that Shannon goes, well, look, I can hang with you. That's why she's with me. I'm sure we can
yeah.
be in an over 55 community.
Yeah, and so great option, financially responsible, um, but so that's like the bottom floor of
Right.
the community tier, and then you have independent living. So independent living is like a managed apartment. You're paying a rent. There aren't usually other sort of services, but there usually are sort of shared amenities. And it's like a 55 and up community, except that these shared amenities do kind of flex into some stuff that we can talk about in a moment. But 55 up communities, it's just a age restriction. All your neighbors are going to be over 55. There's less property tax. It's sort of a zone municipality kind of thing. It's not really like a place that you go to for extra help. You will eventually need to like pay more for
Right.
bringing in caregivers, and they're not there. You still have to kind of do stuff yourself. Independent living community, that starts to change a little bit. It's going to have more of like a dorm like feel. That's where you get like that's where you have the option of like having a restaurant maybe in the community or several, depending on how large it is. And so but there's not going to be aging related services. They don't have a nurse on staff for you. All of that can kind of just none of that exists. It's just uh, like I said, it's like a managed building, and they have shared amenities. Those shared amenities can be, you see some communities that have like a golf course, sometimes several golf courses. There's one community in Florida that has a golf course for every day of the month. And so this is obviously like a massive kind of concept, but that sort of thing, those sorts of things are out there. And then above that, now you start kind of, this is when you're in like an aging adjacent sort of thing. There's assisted living communities, so independent living and then assisted living. And so now the community will have there will be caregivers on staff. There will be a doctor that you can have access to there. Um, this is where it starts to get kind of really expensive. There's usually a staffing ratio associated with these places. Typically, an independent living community has an assisted living wing. And that's really nice because then you're not moving. I mean, you are, but you're not leaving the building. You're moving from one wing to the next. And that wing will be, equipped with things, but you still have a lock on your door. You still have control of your air conditioning. You're still kind of in charge of the services that you receive. Above that, you have skilled nursing, and that is not where you're in charge. That is a pseudo hospital environment. You usually have a roommate. Your door does not have a lock. People can come in and check out on you. If you've ever had like a surgery and you've ended up in like a transitional care facility, usually a lot of those transitional care facilities will also double as skilled nursing. And so that's, you're not having fun at that point. But you can still kind of minimize the discomfort. Sometimes you'll have an independent and assisted living combo that will have like a skilled nursing wing. And so it's nicer when it's all sort of there. Um, if you are not planning ahead for this, or more likely for your listeners, if they have a family member who technically would qualify for Medicaid. And let's talk about that for a second, too. So you're over the age of 65, you're on Medicare. You have a house, everything's great. Now you start having some pretty serious, kind of medical expenses, caregiving associated expenses. You need help. You could, um, uh, ask your family for help. It's usually more tax efficient to use your own resources because anything that you leave is going to be taxed when it gets passed down to a family member. And so you better to use your own resources. Eventually, what might happen though is you do the math and what you need to do. So America has this beautiful thing for older adults that are poor, Medicaid. And most people don't qualify for Medicaid until they kind of plan to, and then they sort of spend down their assets, might sell their home, and they spend down their assets. They fall below the Medicaid limit. Medicaid really doesn't want you to have any sort of extra income, and which I think is a problem. But in any case, so you now qualify for Medicaid. You've done this so that you can get the support that you need. The problem, though, is that Medicaid will only cover the costs of skilled nursing facilities. So if you go back to that ladder I just shared, 55 and up, independent living, assisted living, skilled nursing facility. If you're on Medicaid, you skip the first three. You just go straight to skilled nursing facility. And because of that, there are some Medicaid skilled nursing facilities, in air quotes, where you're going to have a people that are across the spectrum in age and abilities and resources independent ability to care for themselves independently, but they're all crammed together in this skilled nursing facility.
Right.
There's usually no fun amenities.
I think that's what people think in their mind. I think that's what scares a lot of people. When they hear community, we instantly just go straight to that thought of some sort of bad old folks home or bad community. Now, community is a kind term, really. I mean, it's, you grew up with that and you think you're going to be stuck off there.
Yeah, I think that's right. And that Medicaid skilled nursing facility, it's an option. It's sort of the last option. If you have the ability to plan around how you can avoid that one, that's the best, I think. And because a lot of people do end up in Medicaid skilled nursing facilities. The alternatives to that, if you have the means, independent living, if you move in when you're 75, you meet a bunch of friends, you have like 15 years of parties. I mean, really, you can research stuff online. These can be like quite fun sort of places. And then everyone, and then everyone's starting to age. You're all going through it together. It can be a good time. If you skip that and you go straight to Medicaid skilled nursing facility, it's not going to be a good time. So if you have the means, I would suggest independent living. If not, then your other options are move in with a family member. They could have a family member spend massive amounts of money on caregiving to keep you in your home. Or you can choose, if you have the means, to spend your own money on a caregiving to keep you in your own home.
Right.
And I think that at a certain point, that is the right thing to do. If you don't have that community of friends that you've spent 10 years working on because you moved in when you were 75, if you're 88 and you're thinking about moving into a community at that point, that might not be as much fun because you're not going to know anyone. You're not going to be able to play pool or play poker as easily. And so maybe the right thing to do in that moment is bring in the cavalry in whatever shape or form that you can. Caregiving service, family members. There is a great Medicaid again, sponsored program where depending on the state that you live in, so this wasn't true in California, but if we had lived in, I want to say Georgia, for example, I could have actually gotten paid while I was helping my grandma living with her through Medicaid at the time.
Yeah.
That's an option. Happy to explore, a little bit more of that, but that's kind of the playing field of things that people can choose to do. And that's what I was trying to tell my dad. You can make this home a place that you can live in for the next 15 years, or you should probably try to create that new network of friends that you can get if you move into an independent living community. And he would have had so much fun.
Right.
He plays pickleball. He loves to cook. I mean, he would have had a blast. He chose to keep his friends, and I don't blame him. Chose to keep his friends in his home that he has been in now for 50 years. And I think he's doing the right things. He's thinking about how to future-proof it for himself.
I love that.
Yeah.
I one thing I want to touch on, and it segues nice into this, is we talk about the loneliness epidemic. It hits everybody across ages, but especially folks that are older. And you're talking about the importance of having that friend group. And you've said something very important previously that hit me. It was this idea of, you don't want your only friends to be your doctors. And I think for a lot of older people, that's it. And people are going to pass away, people are going to age out. But I think that a lot of folks kind of put themselves in a situation where they are isolated. And I know that was the case with my mother. I mean, it was just, she had access to, to my sister. She had access to me occasionally, obviously with the phone and everything and talking, but there wasn't that friend group or that socialization. And I think that the rapid decline that comes from that is is pretty important to address. Let's talk about that for a second, about how people can avoid isolation.
Yeah, I think it's becoming a pretty well-known stat now, but loneliness is the equivalent of smoking a pack of cigarettes a day as far as health outcomes. The first time I heard that, I thought that was a cute saying. I didn't really know where it came from. Where that comes from is large-scale longitudinal research where they've tried to quantify how lonely people were, and then they looked at their downstream health consequences. And then they said, "Oh my gosh, the people that are the loneliness the people that are the loneliest have the same types of health consequences as people that are smoking a pack of cigarettes a day." So it's
Hmm.
not like a cute expression.
Right.
It's coming from this place of medically, clinically, statistically. They can
Hmm.
say if you are lonely, you are going to have negative downstream health consequences that look like this. And this is kind of the equivalent of someone who's smoking a pack of cigarettes a day.
Wow.
So that's a real clinical pathology. And I see with my own grandma, when you get to be in your 90s, like the only thing that matters is friends and family, the interactions that you're having with people. And I think, unfortunately, for grandma, a lot of that is fewer and fewer friends, um, my immediate family and myself, and then her doctors and medical staff.
Right.
Strangely, like I think this is probably more of a reflection on my grandma than it is on the situation in general, but she is forming very close bonds with her doctors and medical staff, and
Right.
so I think it is more than just like a quasi friendship, at least in some cases. But yeah, you don't want to be in that position if you can avoid it, and it's better for you to avoid that position. And so that's kind of
And part of that's just getting out of the house. And we've talked about that in this conversation. So many people feel trapped, or whether they can't drive or don't feel that they can ask or have a way, and which really brings us back to why GoGo exists. And I think what you have done um, is remarkable and really helping, not only helping people keep their independence and maintain those connections, go places and do things. But it's also something that helps the adult children and grandchildren there who love them and care for them as well. It not only logistically makes our lives that much easier, but it allows us to see our loved ones thrive, and that's amazing. You're doing good work. It's good stuff.
thank you for saying that. Yeah, I really appreciate it, and it's easy to get out of bed in the morning when you're working on this type of problem. It can be
Right.
sometimes really frustrating, but
Yeah.
generally, yeah, you never have to wonder what's going on.
Good. Hey, a couple more questions then. Number one, can be about anything. This could be any subject that there is, but what are you most excited about right now? What is really getting you going and you're excited about?
Um, Given that we've mostly been talking about, um, okay, yeah, what am I the most excited about? I will share. So, GoGo is at best a band-aid solution on the aging problem, and I think that my grandma is very proud of me. But if the devil came to her and said, Betty, like, I will. So my grandma has macular degeneration, which is not always true for aging, but it makes it hers version harder. Betty, I will give you back your eyesight in exchange for your grandson's soul. She would make that trade so fast, and she would throw in her dog's soul as well.
Ah,
And so, obviously she's proud of us, and obviously we're helping her, and we're doing the best to make a bad situation less bad. But we are kind of this band-aid piece. And when you think about the physiological process of aging, it isn't super well understood. Part of the reason for that is because over the last 50 years, most most government research funding for science has been going towards specific disease states. And so, okay, Alzheimer's is a great example. What is causing Alzheimer's? Yes, we know it's correlated with aging, but let's go find out everything that's going on with Alzheimer's. Okay, yeah, heart disease. Yeah, we know it's correlated with aging, but what's going on with heart disease? Lung disease, cancer. Yeah, we know it's correlated with aging, but what's going on with cancer? So all of these end stage diseases are correlated with aging, but the way that the funding apparatus was set up was we're trying to figure out diseases, and the reason is because we can we can take a bunch of people that have cancer, give them a therapy, and then if they stop having cancer, it's a little bit easier for us to know that that therapy worked. The thing about
Hmm.
aging, it's like, all right, we take a bunch of people that are older, give them some program, and then we have to wait 50 years to see if it's working or not. It's too hard, takes too long. So everyone knows about DARPA. There's something else called ARPA, Advanced Research Project Agency, ARPA H slash health. And so this is new. This is recent. This is in the last 12 months. ARPA H is a program that is trying to figure out things that are correlated with the aging process that they can use to measure the effectiveness of broad scale strategies that slow that process down for people.
Hmm.
And it's really exciting research. So basically the idea is we're not going to wait 50 years to figure out if something helps with aging. But if we can figure out some sort of flag or some sort of early indicator of faster aging, maybe we can create therapies that just treat that. And so GoGo has this really incredible opportunity to be a part of the first time that the powers that be are looking at this problem. And we happen to have a massive population of older adults that are looking for things to do. They're excited about research and science. Not all of them, but many of them are. And so we have been working on partnering with different research groups through ARPA H to um, help power different types of studies that they can use to see if there's ways where we can really start to understand the mechanisms that either speed up or slow down aging. Everyone knows that they have that friend who lived to be 100 or 105. And okay, well, why did they live to be 105? But like my grandma might live to be 105,
Right.
honestly. So, but my friend's grandma, passed away at 80. What's the difference? And there is a difference. We just don't know what it is yet, and no one's really spent the time to study it. And so I'm very excited about our ability to help this research go faster. And even if we're not a part of it, just seeing this come into focus
Mhm.
for the federal government, it could be a really exciting change in the way that Western medicine, which has been so diseased focused for so long, starts thinking about the whole person, general wellness with longevity as an outcome that we
Wow.
might be able to change. Um, so
Good stuff.
that about that.
That is something to be excited about. That's good. So usually, most of my guests are closer to my age. They're in midlife and beyond. They're in their 50s plus. And I usually ask them, hey, if you had a time machine and you could go back 20, 30 years and have coffee with your younger self, what would you tell yourself? So you'd be about 10. And, and so we're not going to do that. What I am going to do is say, let's use that time machine and go forward a little bit because you have a unique perspective and vantage point here when the work that you do with aging. So I guess let's fast forward. You're, 55, 60 years old. What have you learned now? And how has what you've learned and done changed how you view aging?
Yeah. Um, so I'm sorry. I'll answer the first question actually, because I would be about 14, and I would
Okay.
probably say, do not date her. And that would be
Oh, I hear
the
that.
advice
Yeah,
I
we
would give
get
to myself
yeah.
at that age. And then so now the second question, go fast forward. What age am I?
You're 55.
55. And I'm asking myself what I should do
You're
differently.
coming, you're coming at this. You're going to have so much more information about aging than I ever did at 55. I guess the question is, with that knowledge, how will you change how you live and change your views on aging going forward?
Yeah, I think that this did kind of briefly come up a little bit earlier. I'll expand on it now. I've really seen how community is everything in those like really final decades, and I would try to cultivate that community as deeply as I can. Not just my family, though I hope to have a deep relationship with them. I can't control it, right? But hope it's good. I guess I have some influence, but I hope it's good. And then my longtime friends, absolutely. But there are so many GoGo clients who find out about GoGo because their neighbor called, and their neighbor is checking in on GoGo to see if it could be a good fit for
Hmm.
their neighbor.
Hmm.
We've had grocery store clerks from small towns, watching someone come by and seeing things start to get hard, call GoGo or even request pamphlets of GoGo that they can give out to some of their regulars.
Hmm.
I've been moving around a lot over the last decade, and we were talking about it a little bit before we started recording, but I do not know the name of like my favorite coffee shop barista, and I need to learn that name. And
Right.
I want to have these deep social relationships with however many people I can. I want to be friendly, and I want to feel like people can rely on me, and I can rely on people, even if it's like that grocery store clerk, because
Hmm.
I think that that is kind of what ends up mattering when you're 85, and it probably is the sort of thing you can start influencing when you're 55. And it's
I
also
love
something
that.
I'm not super great at right now. So I need to continue to work on this.
But I love that. And to your point, it's never too late. There's a couple of things with that. Sometimes it's those deep relationships, but it's also just connecting with another person, whether you're passing with the barista or whomever. And I think it was Trader Joe's. I read that certain Trader Joe's have a specific line. Okay, and it may be another grocery store, but they have a specific line called the slow line for older people or anyone who just wants to chat. Okay, that's
Uh,
just it. So you can go and they put their chattiest clerk there. And it's just that for someone who they get out and they just want to interact. And we forget how important that is because you know why? Because everybody's on this so damn much that
yeah.
they forget what it's like just to actually have a conversation and speak and, share your photos of your dog or your grandkids or whatever. And I think that's important. And the other thing that hit me when you're talking about that, and I've learned this. I mean, look, it's great. I admire people who have truly lifelong friendships. They knew each other in high school or college or, in their 20s, and now 50 years later, they're still friends. If you have that, A plus. The fact is, though, a lot of people don't. And I think a lot of people, I've said this, a lot about advanced adulting. History and longevity does not mean connection. Okay, just because you've known someone forever does not mean that you're connected. And you can bring in new friends at any age, 34, 54, 74. And why I think that's important is, I think I came from probably one of these last generations. It's a very Gen X thing. Forget the drinking out of a water hose, but we were also one of these where, hey, we didn't have these things to find out. So it was like, where are the kids? Well, you see where the bikes are, and you go next door, and hey, can Justin come out and play? And that was it. And everybody wants that. But we don't have that anymore. And I see so many people my age in midlife and beyond, I'm sure amongst seniors, that you just want someone to come knock on your door. You want someone to ask you, hey, can you come out and play? Can you go get a drink? Can you go get coffee? Can you play pickleball? Can you go do whatever? And the problem is we are all so hung up on, I want to be asked. But the bravest thing I think you can do to combat loneliness is to be the one to ask. And it may kind of be counterintuitive. It may not be your nature. You may be an introvert by nature, but sometimes you may have to be the one to pick up the phone, to make the call, to ask, to say hello. And that hello is a powerful, powerful thing to combat loneliness and establish those relationships. And it's important stuff.
Super well said. Yeah,
Yeah.
I definitely struggle with picking up the phone to call people to say hello right now, and um, something that I hope I'm much better at 54.
Hmm. Never too late. Justin Boogaard, good man doing good work. I really love how everything about what you're doing, and I wish you nothing but success. And I know that you're going to keep changing the world for a lot of seniors and the people we love, and for a lot of us as well. So, thank you very much for being here.
Thank you for saying that. Thanks so much for having me. This was a lot of fun. Happy to do it again anytime.